Before we turn our full attention to the 2024 campaign trail, there are developments in one of the more interesting races of 2023. It's the mayoral runoff in Chicago. After Democrat Lori Lightfoot became the city's first mayor in 40 years to lose re-election. As we mentioned before, this race has become something of a proxy battle between rival factions inside the Democratic Party as progressives and centrists debate how the party should address the issue of rising crime. The candidates who advanced to the runoff, Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis, shared the debate stage last night ahead of the April 4th election. And as you might expect, the issue of crime was front and center. Take a listen to one of their exchanges.
The bottom line is my opponent wants to defund the police. He doesn't want to fill the 1,100 vacancies. He does not want to bring back retired officers or invite other officers who have left to return without any loss of seniority. So at the end of the day, what you've got to do is you've got to fill the ranks, you've got to fill those vacancies, and you've got to deploy the police into the communities.
I'm not going to defund the police, never said it, right? But what we're going to do is train and promote 200 more detectives because we're not solving crime in the city of Chicago, especially in black and brown poor communities. The best way to engender confidence with public safety, you got to catch people.
Joining me now on set, Tia Mitchell, the Washington correspondent for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Faz Shakir, senior advisor to Vermont Independent Senator Bernie Sanders, and Stephen Hayes, the editor and CEO of The Dispatch, as well as an NBC News political analyst. Tia, let me start with that framing last night. It does seem, if you have to say I'm not for defunding the police, you're probably not in a good position right now.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see it all oversimplified. Policing is kind of complicated. Ideally, you would want a leader who can see the nuance in both. Of course, you want to fully fund a police department that does its job. It investigates crimes, it gets the bad guys, and the police themselves are working well for the community and not corrupt and all that good stuff. But you also want to address the social issues that are at the crux of the defund the police movement, but often gets lost in the conversation about diverting funds for mental health, for poverty, for jobs and resources that could possibly keep people away from a life of crime. Right. But instead you get this binary that, of course, we're seeing play out in the mayoral election. And yes, it is going to force voters, unfortunately, to have to kind of make a choice. Which one do they prefer more? The more progressive thought about policing being more holistic, or is it a strictly law and order, get more boots on the ground and hope that crime comes down? You know,
Faz, it seemed to me that Brandon Johnson missed an opportunity to make the and argument that essentially Tia just made. And he didn't make the and argument. And it did seem like he almost accepted the premise that this is a black and white issue, not referring in that strain per se.
Well, I also think that there's substantive ideological disagreements here. And you're saying, you know, it's a faction within the Democratic Party. Obviously, Vallis has called himself a pseudo-Republican, or even mentioned he's a Republican, so I would argue that maybe it's not. He
is a registered Democrat.
Yes, he says that.
I mean,
he says that, but he's called himself a Republican, agrees with Republican ideas on a lot of things, obviously.
Does that mean he shouldn't be a Democrat?
Well, I would argue that sometimes he's not, and that's where I think that we're going to have a debate about it, because in some sense, you know, my full disclosure, my boss, Bernie Sanders, has endorsed Brandon Johnson. We believe that you got a working class fight here. Do you know who Brandon Johnson is? He's from the Chicago Teachers Union. You know, and you got a guy who's privatized their pensions, moved them into the private market, lost a lot of money in the Chicago teachers world. That's one of the reasons that there's a big fight going on there. It's a working class fight. One of the reasons why I'm excited about it. Public housing is a big issue in Chicago. Healthcare is a big issue in Chicago. Those are the issues on which Brandon Johnson is going to be balanced, I think. But you got to elevate them over this public sector.
But this is a fight within the Democratic Party. I mean, there is this more moderate sector of the Democratic Party that spoke out vociferously against the defund the police movement. I think they had public support when they did so. And Brandon Johnson, unfortunately for him, he did embrace defund the police. I mean, this isn't as gray as he's trying to make it sound. And now he's being called on it. He's got to defend it. He's backing away from it. He's not sort of reiterating that support. I think the other thing that's difficult for him beyond just the crime issue, the defund the police issue, is what he wants to do with the rest of the money. I think you can make a good case, as Faz did, that progressives in the city would like that money, would like it to be spent. There's a thriving business community in Chicago, or if you talk to some of them, they would say there was a thriving business community in Chicago. You've had people fleeing the city because of spending, because of the way that Chicago has run its business, the way the state of Illinois has run its business. And he's talking about raising taxes by nearly $1 billion. That's a hard sell. I mean, I think this is a clear ideological difference.
You know, what's interesting, Tia, here, though, is leading progressives have gotten involved. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. Joe Biden is staying quiet. J.B. Pritzker is not getting involved. Some of the...
Jim Clyburn is getting involved.
On the other side, right?
No, supporting
he's supporting Brandon Johnson.
Yeah.
But that was a mild surprise on that one because he's been so he's been angry over the defund the police.
That's right.
So what do we think the White House wants to see happen here?
Well, I would say that the White House wants to stay out of it because at the end of the day, the White House wants to have a good working relationship with whoever is elected mayor.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, why take a risk? Why gamble when you don't really have to? And you can say it's a Democratic race and may the best man win, and we'll be able to work with whoever because we didn't choose sides. So I think that's kind of a smart thing to do. It's not... You know, even on the progressive side, I'm sure either one of them would love Joe Biden's endorsement, but will he really move the needle in such a local race? Probably not.
I want to talk about TikTok. Is there a potential backlash?
Are you a TikTok star? Do you
What's
have a
that?
TikTok account?
I do not. No, I do not have TikTok on this phone. I am the only one in my nuclear family that doesn't.
That's a shame. I've seen you dance.
I know.
You really should have one.
Is there any political backlash that the president needs to fear by pushing forward with the TikTok ban? Beth?
Political backlash, I'm not. I mean, the China politics, as we know, it's easy to beat up. The xenophobia works. Sadly, I'm someone who probably is minority with my own party on this one. I'm not into xenophobia, but I understand it works politically. So if you have China scare, China concern, oh, they're beating us at this thing or that thing, they can see your data. Obviously, you could flip this argument, and people in China can Facebook, can Google, can YouTube.
Well, that's actually, there is a reciprocity.
Yes,
there is no Twitter over there.
Right,
there is no Facebook over there. They won't let us in because they fear American surveillance.
Is there opportunities for American companies to get data of Chinese companies? Of course there are, yes.
You know.
And so I mean, I think that there can be this concern. I don't happen to share it, but I understand the politics of it tends to work when you want to raise concerns.
The reason I'm asking is that obviously this is more popular among younger voters. Do you worry about younger voters rebelling over this?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I would, because younger voters who are not paying attention to the day-to-day contours of American politics will suddenly be forced to, because they will say, oh, wait, I'm not able to do this. We're not able to do it in the way that I wanted to. But I do think there's a real
the government was going to ban TikTok entirely.
If that's the way that,
way
that this plays among that demographic, I think there is political risk there. But there's also a security issue. It's a real security issue, and I think it's not. I think you can make the security argument without playing the xenophobia. I mean, Lord knows we have politicians who would like to make the xenophobic argument, but there's a real security issue.
And that's the question. I mean, what does the Biden administration think they're going to be able to succeed at that the Trump administration failed at?
Well, I mean, when you talk about just security, because I do agree, there are security concerns. So I think the Biden administration can say, because of the security concerns, we don't want them on government property. We don't want them using government resources, government Wi-Fi, even things like that. And then you can make your own decision for the Wi-Fi at your house and for your own personal device. And I think that could be the divide. Now, if they go beyond that, you might have a little bit of concern. But on the other hand, you would hope that the owners of TikTok and the regulators could work something out so that a very popular app could move forward in the United States that is becoming the news feed for a lot of people.
The fascinating thing is they're actually spending more money to try to figure out how to keep ByteDance involved, and you're just like, why are you resisting this? There's actually a better financial case to just simply do it off, pay a dividend, and move on. The fact that they don't is oddly suspicious. Steve Hayes, I have you here. John Bolton, I don't have time to play it, but he was on here yesterday just scratching his head, didn't understand the logic of Ron DeSantis's territorial dispute, classifying Ukraine as a territorial dispute, while talking about the Chinese Communist Party, which actually, if you wanted to talk about Taiwan, is actually, by definition, an actual territorial dispute here. But he didn't understand the political logic of it. As he put it, he said, is suddenly somebody saying, I'm for Trump? Oh, now I'm for DeSantis because he has the same position on Ukraine.
No, I think, I agree. I'm puzzled to a certain extent by the political decisions here. I think what the DeSantis team would tell you is they don't want to create space with Trump. They would like to be there. For the Republican Party, who are tired of Donald Trump, tired of his antics, you know, beyond the core, sort of, let's say, 25% of sort of Trump loyalists. It's a huge swath of the Republican Party that more or less liked what he wanted to do, like what he did as president policy-wise, but is tired of the drama, wants to move on. I think Ron DeSantis is trying to position himself to be the person who can swoop in there. We saw that happen in 2016. It didn't work.
Hey, Faz, Any anti-Ukraine funding going to grow on the left or not?
Anti-Ukraine funding.
Meaning, the left has been pretty supportive of this. Yeah.
I think there's going to be some constraints that are coming at some point soon. What's the end date? Just like you remember Afghanistan when we started to take a turn. When's the end point for our engagement? Yeah, I do think it's going to.
There's always been anti-war progressives who have voted against Ukrainian funding from the beginning. They're just, as a principle, have said, I oppose this. So they could increase in ranks.
All right, something we'll all watch. I got to rush out here. And in one more segment, Faz, Stephen, and Tia, thank you all.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.